Okay, talking about decimals and percents, we've talked about fractions and percents, we've talked about fractions and decimals. This basically is the last part that we have to go as far as converting fractions, decimals, and percents. It's actually very, 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 very straightforward if you follow along. Some of you guys have actually kind of figured this out on your own. First thing that we need to be able to do is write a decimal as a percent. So if I give you a decimal, you need to be able to turn it into a percent. You guys know this based on just if I gave you the problem, I think you would understand it, but I will give you the rules as far as how to convert a decimal to a percent. Remember, percents are always out of what? 100, and so we use that a little bit to help us converting decimals to percents. Basically, all there is to it, if you want to make a decimal into a percent, is multiply by 100. And by multiplying a decimal number by 100, all you're really doing is moving that decimal 2 places to the right. I'll show you a few examples of this. It's very straightforward. Some of you guys might have already been doing this a little bit in your head as we've been working on fractions and decimals and percents. But so we're going to multiply each decimal number by 100 to make it into a percent. And remember, the shortcut for that is to just move the decimal 2 places to the right. Now, it would be important that you're getting that down, that it's to the right, because obviously when we go the other way, it'll be to the left. Want to make sure your answers make sense. And so think about that with an example like this. Using your background knowledge, you know how to read that. How do you read that decimal number? What is it? 1800. That's 18 hundredths, right? That's 18 out of 100. So we know if it was a fraction, we'd have 18 out of 100, and we could reduce that, and we'd be good to go. But we want it as a percent. Well, remember, percents are always out of 100. So you know what this answer should be. What should this answer be as a percent? 18%. So let me show you why that works. If I multiply it by 100, that means the decimal is going to move once, twice to the right, and now what do I have? 18%. Just don't forget to add the percent sign. See why it works? Make sense? Let me give you another example, and hopefully this will even help clear it up a little bit more. What would this be if you read that properly? 2 and 3/10. Now, if I have 2 and something, what do you know your percent is going to be? More than 100, and actually more than 200. So you know what this should be essentially anyway, but now watch the trick again. Multiply by 100. This is a little trickier maybe because of the way the decimal number is written, but this is 2.3. Move it once, move it twice. What has to go right there? 0. So what percent do I have? Does my answer make sense? Does 2.3 make sense to be 230%? Yeah. And the best way that I can give you to make sure that these answers make sense is just the number 1. You know what 1 is worth. If I have 1 whole, I have what percent? 100%. And so the idea is, where would the decimal be on this problem? Where is the decimal right now? Directly after the 1, right? So if I have it here, I'm going to move it once, twice. How many zeros do I need to add? 2. So that would be 100%. I know I'm moving kind of quick, but does everybody feel okay on that? Decimal to percent, move it 2 places to the right. Now, if this is super simple, then it's going to be even simpler the next way. I'm going to have you write percents as decimals. So if I give you a percent and I want to make it into a decimal, what do you think you're going to do? 2 places to the left. Yes, I'll show you what this looks like when we're done. Poor 5th and 6th hour that have to watch this video. Does it record the screen? What's happening? How does this work? Yeah. Well, see, 5th hour, Mr. Smith might be teaching, and Mr. Munger can teach us too. Mr. Munger's good at math, but I didn't know if he was going to be up for the challenge or not. But it turns out we got 2 pretty capable substitutes this afternoon. Write the percent as a decimal. So now basically just working it backwards. If I give you the percent and you want to make it into a decimal, you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left. Again, big thing here, make sure your answer makes sense. Stop and slow down. Keep track. The biggest issue that I have is some people will just move it once or move it 3 times, just forgetting exactly what they're supposed to do, and then also putting in the zeros to fill places when necessary. So again, basically just undoing what we just learned if I give it to you the other way. Now, 75%, again, you already know this because you know what percents are out of. What are percents out of? So you know what this answer should be, even as a fraction or as a decimal. It should be what? That would be as a fraction. As a decimal, it would be 75 hundredths, right? We know that 75% is 75 out of 100. That's how we know that this works. Remember, where would the decimal be on 75%? It would be on the right here behind that 5, just before the percent sign every time. Now I'm going to move it 2 places to the left. Dunk, dunk. So I have 0.75, but Mr. Bartlett is a stickler, and he would say you need I need to have a 0 before that decimal. And again, read that. What did we get for an answer? We got 75 hundredths. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. Next example. A little harder. Is this a big number or a small number? Small number, right? 0.4% is not something you want to get on a quiz or a test. So again, make sure your answer makes sense. Which way are we moving the decimal? Left. How many spaces? 2. So watch. Once, twice. What am I going to need to put in? So can you tell me my answer? Really, 2 zeros. I'm going to have 0. Nice. Now that makes sense, right? Because is that a small number? Yeah, absolutely. 4% is the same thing as 4 thousandths. Everybody okay there? Try this one on your own, 168%. 168%, try this one on your own. Remember the decimal, when I give you a percent, the decimal should be located just in front of the percent sign unless you actually see it somewhere. And so I can actually draw in that decimal right after the 8. If it's 168%, you know you're going to have what? More than one whole, right? So move it 2 places to the left. What'd you get? Ooh, I like the way E. Mitch read it. 1 and 68 hundredths, right? Questions on this? Okay, the other thing that I'll show you builds off the percent proportion. If I give you problems like this, I want 40% of 15. Last week's quiz and last week I taught you a lot about the percent proportion. I'm going to show you another method for doing this. I've also shown you how to draw rectangular arrays and make fractions to do this. But if I ask you for 40% of 15, using the percent proportion, by the way, 40% would be the A, the B, or the P? P. Of 15, so 15 would be the B. And so I'd have A over 15 equals 40 over 100, and we could solve from there. Everybody okay? Now let me show you another method. That arrow over there is kind of the big hint. Of usually means to do what if I actually want to do that. So I'm never going to multiply or divide by a percent. I got to make the percent either into a decimal or a fraction. What do you think I'd want you to turn it into today? A decimal. So how would I make 40% as a decimal? And so I have 0 and 4/10 of 15. And you don't necessarily need to draw the arrow, but you need to remember that of means to do what? So how could I figure out what 40% of 15 is? Multiply 4/10 and 15. So as long as you guys know how to multiply decimals, this shouldn't be too terrible. Remember, when you actually multiply them, just pretend the decimal's not there. What's 5 times 4?
20.
Carry the 2. What's 1 times 4?
4.
Plus 2 more is 6. But now here's the tricky part, right? It's not 60. That wouldn't make sense. Count your decimal places in your factors. How many decimal places do you see in your factors? Just 1. So I put my decimal at the farthest to the right, move it however many places I need to, which would be 1. What do I get for an answer? 6.0, which is 6. Does that answer make sense? Would 6 be a little less than half of 15? Good. Went kind of quickly, but are we okay on that idea? Yeah. We also could convert it to a fraction and multiply like we did last week. So here'd be another example. If I want 75% of 80, what's 75% as a decimal? And yeah, and I hear some people also thinking of it, as a fraction or as a rectangle, right? But 75 hundredths of 80. Remember, you don't have to put anything on top or bottom necessarily like you don't want to. I would hang the 0, right? We'll come back and get those decimal places later. Drop the 0. What's 5 times 8? 40. Then I have 7 times 8 plus 4. What's 7 times 8? Plus 4 more is 60. And now we're back to that same thing. You don't want to forget this in your decimal multiplication. How many decimal places do you see in the factors? 2, right? 1, 2. Start at the right, move once, twice to the left. What do we get for an answer? And you heard Wyatt over there talking about, well, 3/4 of 80. Does that make sense? 3/4 of 80 is 60. And again, we could use the percent proportion as well. So just a lot of different methods for you to solve some of those word problems that you'll see on your assignment. Everybody good? That's it. There's your tricks, percents and decimals. Your assignment will be 7.3a odds. And on side B, we won't do quite all the odds, but similar assignment there. Everybody good? Yeah. Perfect. Good luck 5th and 6th hour.